Hey guys, I'm Mike. I'm an HR professor at the Ted Rogers School of Management. In weekly videos, I talk about my hardest HR questions and their solutions that have stumped students in the past. So if you are in HR or have a big HR exam coming up, hit subscribe, smash like, make sure notification tab is on, and check out my weekly videos. In this week's video, I'm going to be talking about the legal requirements of HR and 2 questions that I've used in the past to stump students. So let's go. So here's the first question that we're going to look at. You just started working as a server at a restaurant in Toronto. When you first started, everyone was really nice. However, after 2 months of working, you realized people were unhappy because of the discrimination that was taking place. Okay, so what I like to do, there's a little case, a bunch of facts up here to distract you, not really relevant. The big thing was discrimination. So really, I put these 2 sentences together, 3 sentences together. You didn't really need them. We could have just really have started with this, but some of the time I put important facts in here. Sometimes I don't. In this case, it was really more of a distraction. Okay, so to define discrimination, hopefully you can just remember something from the textbook, right, to write in there. What is the difference between systematic and constructive discrimination? Ooh, this may be my favorite question that I ever put forward. The difference between systematic and constructive discrimination. Most students get this wrong, but it's super, super easy. Identify 4 prohibited grounds of discrimination that may be taking place at the restaurant. Describe how one of the 5 prohibited grounds of discrimination can be a source of constructive. All right, so part A. So what is it? Definition. Okay, so this definition just comes strictly from the textbook, not really anything too fancy. Part A, it's a distinction, exclusion, or preference based on their prohibited grounds that has an effect of nullifying or impairing the right of a person to full and equal recognition in the exercise of his or her human rights and freedoms. So this question, I know that's a bit of a mouthful. That is the definition that comes from the textbook we are using, okay? So whatever textbook is being used for the definition, try to stick to it as close to it as you can. For me, word for word doesn't matter, but the closer you can get to it, the easier it is. Okay, so for my potentially favorite question in the world that I've ever used, not really a favorite question, but what is the difference between systematic and constructive discrimination? It's actually so easy. They're the same. They're just synonymous words for describing the same thing. And if you say that, you get the full marks. Super easy trick, I know, I feel bad, but not really. Okay, they're the same. It's the whole notion of unintentional discrimination. It's this idea that you're embedding discrimination within the policies that have an adverse impact on certain groups. So it's I guess you could describe it as the idea that you have a policy that suggests you need to be a certain height. So say, for example, you need to be above 5'10" to be a server in Toronto, and if you're not, then you can't get the job. But really that's gender-based discrimination, as men tend to be taller than women. So you're discriminating against women, and the height doesn't really matter to be a server. So that would be one example of it. Anyways, part C, identify 4 prohibited grounds. So in this case, what I'm really looking for is for you to, in the slides, we talk about many different grounds for discrimination. Okay, so here they are listed out. To get the 4 marks, in this case, I actually only ask you to identify, so you could just identify 4 of them. I'd probably, if I said to identify and explain, it'd probably be worth more than 4 marks, but you'd have to identify and then say, age-based discrimination, maybe explain what it is, discrimination based on age. Then you can also say, oh, how is this likely to occur in a restaurant? I don't know. Ageism could be you don't want to hire young servers because they're less intelligent or less knowledgeable of the food or something like that. I don't know. So then in that case, it'd be ageism against the younger workers. Okay. But in this case, I just ask you to identify 4, so you don't need to explain them, but I would say 4 that are related to the restaurant. So in this case, this particular setting, all of these could be, so I don't think you really need to discount any of them. Describe how one of the prohibited grounds of discrimination can be a source of constructive discrimination. Again, I told you constructive discrimination is like this embedding the discrimination within the policies. So for here, I talk about constructive discrimination based on a height requirement. I shouldn't be police officers. What am I talking about? What am I teachers? What am I talking about? Servers, okay, in a restaurant. okay? So any of these would do. You just have to figure out how you can embed this like a policy, an inappropriate policy, embed discrimination within an inappropriate policy to discriminate against somebody. In this case, we would do gender-based discrimination, and you're embedding it within a height requirement for servers, okay? So the question is, describe how one of the five, or one of the 5 prohibited grounds. Why do I have 5 here? Oh my golly. One of the 4 prohibited grounds you mentioned in your previous question. Yeah, so in this case it would be the hairs here. Here it is. Okay, so it's an inappropriate height requirement for servers. You're embedding discrimination against women because you're saying that you need to be a certain height. I guess I'm not technically saying whether you need to be above or below a certain height. You could be discriminating against men based on this, but it's that kind of idea. Okay. All right, question number 2 is similar but slightly different. Sally, okay, so right now you're imagining you're a woman, if you're a man, and if you're a man, or if you're a woman, you can just stick to imagining you're a woman. Did that make any sense? Anyways, Sally has been working as a lawyer at a high-end firm in Toronto for the past 2 years. Okay, anything important there? Maybe a lawyer just to say the context. Sally started where she noticed that there are 10 men and 2 have been promoted as a partner. Okay, so this is where things get important. As a woman, she's worried about chances of becoming a partner someday. Yes, I would say as a woman, Sally, you should be very worried because, let's see what we're talking about here. Define discrimination. Okay, so this is the same thing we just mentioned. Definition, what phenomena related to gender is taking place here? Okay, and how do you know? Well, it's based on what I've highlighted here. So in this case, A, we just talked about it. So here's the definition from the textbook. Pretty straightforward, okay? So what phenomena is taking place in this case? Taking place in this case, taking place in this case. Where I'm trying to get at is the notion of a glass ceiling, okay? So it's the idea that women can get a job as a lawyer, okay, good. It's a high profile job, it's a good job, but you can't get into the manager ranks. And in this case, you can't be promoted to a partner. So the fact that men are being promoted and women are not being promoted suggests that there is a glass ceiling taking place, okay? You know, the fact that 2 are women have, good. If it was, 5 men, 5 women, it would not reflect a glass ceiling taking place. But given that there's a stark difference and there's really nothing justifying why these men would have more experience or skills than these women, would reflect a glass ceiling, okay? So men are being promoted over women, and there's really no evidence to suggest why these men are more skilled or have more knowledge than the women. Okay? Part C, Sally has been assigned to hire 2 junior lawyers. So Sally's boss asks her to hire attractive individuals. Oh, interesting. Because her boss thinks judges are lenient to attractive lawyers. Well, that only makes sense, doesn't it? Is this a B4? Why or why not? Okay, so there's 2 things here. First, you need to know what a B4 is. A B4 is a bona fide occupational requirement. Okay, so you have to know what it is and then explain why or why not is a B4 happening. Okay, so here, what do I have here? It is discrimination based on appearance. Yes, that is pretty straightforward. Your attractiveness does not really impact your ability to understand legal content or articulate your rationale or reasoning within a court to either a judge or a jury, although Hollywood might disagree with me. Okay, so in this case, it actually says, is this a B4? So I would probably define a B4 first. So B4 stands for bona fide occupational requirement, which is a justifiable reason for discrimination based on business necessity that is required for the safe and efficient operation of the organization, or it's a requirement that can be clearly defended as an intrinsically required by the tasks an employee is expected to perform. Okay, looks does not, enter the equation. Okay, so does it or is this not a B4? The answer is definitely no. This is discrimination based on physical appearance. You do not need to be attractive. Your attractiveness does not impact your ability to understand or articulate the law or legal rationale. Okay, so nope, not a B4. So it's discrimination. So don't do that. D, if one of the lawyers that Sally hired uses a wheelchair and would require the law firm to build a ramp to enter the building, does the law firm have to do this, have to accommodate the needs of the new hire? Okay, why or why not? Okay, so this is another thing you have to learn about me. For me personally, it could be other professors as well, I don't know. But I try to, it's actually one of the, the faux pas of when you're writing questions is to have a leading question to suggest that it's like a certain answer. So I always say, oh, is this the case? Why or why not? Okay, when the real answer is, well, it depends. It's not an either or, it depends. Life is gray. It's not like black or white all the time, it's gray. It depends on the reasonable accommodation of the case. Let me explain. So reasonable accommodation is the adjustment of employment policies and practices that an employer may be expected to make so that no individual is denied benefits, disadvantage of employment, or prevented from carrying out essential components of a job because of prohibited grounds in the human rights legislation. Okay? So in other words, if somebody needs wheelchair access, or somebody needs the ability to work from home because they're not able to enter the building because of their physical impairments, that could be deemed reasonable accommodation. Now, determine whether a company is obligated to accommodate somebody based on their needs. It's based on the idea of undue hardship. So undue hardship is whether there are financial costs, whether the financial costs make accommodation possible or impossible. So oftentimes it's related to this idea of undue financial hardship. Okay, so it really depends on the size and financial stability of the law firm. Okay, so in a hypothetical scenario where the law firm is very financially capable, it's a big law firm, very successful, you can think Suits from TV, like that type of law firm, then yes, they would be expected to accommodate. However, if the law firm would experience undue hardship as a result of building the ramp, so think of like Better Call Saul, then that law firm would not be expected to build the ramp. Okay, so if it's a big law firm, can afford it, they're not going to go under by building the ramp, you are legally expected to build the ramp or accommodate that lawyer in another means, such as providing them with access to remote work. Alternatively, if the law firm is very small, they do not have the same financial resources, then that organization would not be expected to accommodate the worker based on their physical capabilities. All right, guys, that's it. That's my video on HR questions and solutions related to the legal requirements of HR. If you found this video helpful or want to learn more tips on how to ace your HR exam questions, hit subscribe, smash like, make sure notification tab is turned on, and check out my video next week. Until then, take care.